Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, every day I try to learn and share stories of how technology is transforming areas of our life that we don't associate with technology. Now, technology is not very often built with kids in mind, but it should be. But what we do see is it's built for adults and consumer use, and everything is designed with this one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter approach. But children have smaller hands, different developmental needs, and so much more. So when I learned that Logitech took all this into consideration when designing a new pen, put students at the heart of that entire design process, I felt compelled to find out more, because that pen is one of the first mainstream tech tools designed for and with students, which is essentially a USI stylus for Chromebooks, but designed for learning so students can begin to unlock their full potential. But I wanted to learn more, not just about the pen, but also the design process, and talk specifically about the development process of the pen and what it can tell us about the future of tech design overall. So I reached out to them, and Grace Lee patiently listened to me and advised that she would love to come on and share the stories with you today. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the Bay Area in the US, where you can join me and Grace Lee in conversation. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Grace Lee, and I am the head of design for education at Logitech. What I do is I lead a multidisciplinary team of designers, and that includes industrial, color material finish, user experience designers, and design researchers. And our day-to-day is really spent focusing on how to create the best experiences and product solutions for students, teachers, and schools.
Fantastic. And one of the reasons I was excited to get you on the podcast today is the fact that tech is not often built with kids in mind, but it should be, because children have smaller hands, different developmental needs, and there's just so much more. And I read this same kind of problem with the older generation as well. I've been speaking with the guys at GrandPad recently and how they're looking after the older generation. But can you tell me the story behind how Logitech took all of that into consideration when designing the Logitech pen?
Yeah, so at Logitech, we are a computer peripheral and accessories company. And so what we do is we always try to create tools that feel like a natural extension of the people that we are designing for. In the case of Logitech Pen, it was centered around students in grades K through 12, so ages 5 through 18. And what you had mentioned earlier, most general tech products and the styluses that we've observed were designed for, adults and not specifically school use cases and kids in their specific growth and developmental stages. And what you alluded to earlier was, considering the physical needs. So we took into account things like hand size, ergonomics, the mobility and dexterity kids have in their fingers at different age ranges, and the activities and length of use that they would be using this type of product for. But alongside physical needs, we also had to consider the cognitive and emotional stages and needs of this age group. So looking at things like the level of simplicity, something that is simple enough for young kids ages 5 to use, but is also still appropriate for kids in high school to use. We also had to make this product very fail-proof. And what that means is considering young kids, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they're still developing their identity and they're developing emotionally. So at this age range, they tend to embarrass quite easily. So if they break something in school, they won't ask for help. Actually, they won't want to draw attention to themselves and things like that. So you can imagine how detrimental that might be for a tech product that might break during school use. And that's on one end of the spectrum. Kids that are in middle school age range, so 11, 12, 13, they're, just discovering their newfound strength. They're actively testing their strength. So what they do at this age is that they are trying to see if something breaks. They're seeing how durable something is. And so we really had to make something as durable for what I would hope are edge cases, but, is in the day-to-day use at school.
And I'm conscious there'll be some people listening know all about it and others will be hearing about it for the first time. So just to set the scene, the pen is ultimately a USI stylus for Chromebooks designed for learning. But can you tell me a little bit more about what it is and the problems that you set out to solve with it from the very beginning?
Yeah, there are studies that show that people retain information better when they actually physically write it down as opposed to typing it out. So a product like this, USI Stylus, it gives more options to students who might benefit from this type of learning where they prefer to write something down. Also observing the other solutions out in the marketplace, we've just noticed that, they weren't designed considering the student and school experiences. A lot of them just look like standard pens that you might see. They are cylindrical. They're usually made out of, plastic or metal, and they can be quite slippery. And the size and thicknesses were not necessarily considered in extended writing use. And it wasn't designed thinking about, the management needs of schools and teachers and IT managers. So the goal of Logitech Pen was to make a product that was super simple, ultra comfortable, and essentially kid-proof. Super simple. What I mean by that is that this product just works. It has no buttons on this product. There's no Bluetooth pairing. It uses a technology called USI, which stands for Universal Stylus Initiative. And that just works with any other USI enabled Chromebook. So you touch the pen to the screen and it just starts writing. Super comfortable. I mean, this was a really important thing for us. We wanted this product to be loved and students would feel comfortable using this product day in and day out. And where we narrowed down was this, what I call a trilobe shape. And this is a trilobe is a rounded triangular profile. We got to this shape through a lot of consumer and user testing. And this triangular form was actually inspired by triangular grips that are often put on pencils to teach young kids where to place their fingers when they're learning how to write. This triangular profile paired with the silicone material that's on the grip really helps to prevent any slipping, especially when you're writing for a long time and your hands are getting sweaty. It really does orient your fingers on each side of that triangular wall. And the material just helps from your hands cramping up or having to grip tighter just because your hands are slipping. So this is appropriate for kids who are, learning how to write. They're just starting out their educational journey, as well as, older students who are doing more complex math homework for long periods of time. And lastly, kid-proof. And kid-proof just means that it meets durability standards that schools and parents need. They don't want to be replacing this product. So it does have to pass our stringent sit tests and drop tests. We even made it Cheetos proof. Cheetos is a very colorful snack. And, we wanted to make sure that it is still wipeable and cleanable, even with the most, colorful snacks. I mean, kids often multitask when doing their work and homework. And then quick charging, this product, one charge, lasts 15 days, but if you do forget, and as often students probably forget, 30 seconds gets you, 30 minutes of in-class use. So really considering all those, use cases and putting those as features into the product was what we did.
Oh man, absolutely love that. And anyone that's got Cheeto stains on anything will know how important that is. But one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is also let people have a little look under the hood and a peek behind the curtain and see how things are actually created. So can you walk me through the development process of the pen and what you can tell us about the future of tech design overall? Because that's where all the magic happens, but nobody ever sees that, right?
Right, right. I mean, we go through a lot. Logitech has a very extensive R&D process, and with Logitech Pen, we centered kids and teachers at every step of the design. So what we did was we brought different samples and prototypes to kids to use. And, let me tell you, these kids actually give very poignant and eloquent and very honest feedback. We've received feedback like, I hate this for this type of reason, which is actually very different than the type of feedback that we would get from adults. Adults are scared to hurt our feelings. They might be trying to wordsmith, but there was no holding back. They were very, truthful and honest and straight to the point, which actually helped with our developmental process to get to refine to something that would resonate faster. But they would also comment on things like comfort, how it feels like to hold, how they would hold it differently for different activities. They might hold it closer to the tip when they're doing one activity versus a little bit more relaxed when they're writing. So they were really able to kind of get in deep with their feedback. They would comment on things like the shape, the length, the weight, and even the color. And the kids, they were really excited to be part of this co-creation process. How often do they get a say in the type of products that they might be using day to day? And teachers helped review this product also. One math teacher told us that her class, they struggled to do math problems once their school adopted tablets, and they were doing their math problems with their fingers on these tablets. I mean, you can imagine how hard 2 + 2 might be,
Yeah.
let alone a more complex like algebra equation. And so all of this, it really has great implications for how we should be designing in general. It's an equity issue, really, just to involve those who don't normally get a say. Every company needs to involve the end user in the design, I believe. And, looking at education, and especially in education, it just doesn't happen much. There's a lot of repurposing going on. Products are not designed specifically for educational needs. And this is a time when it's the most needed. Kids are developing and their future is so dependent on them learning and learning well. So I believe that education deserves a focused concentration to design appropriate products that are impactful and useful.
So I'm curious, do you think there is still somewhat of an awkwardness gap where tech can be a comfortable extension of our real physical selves and that builds confidence? And what do you think the secret to bridging that gap is, if it still exists?
Well, I mean, our education, as well as other parts in our life, is turning increasingly more digital year by year, and especially in the last couple years. But it's still really important to know that we are all still very much human. There's a lot that tech can offer, but the right tools are very much needed and able to be able to use that tech to its full potential. And for what it means for students is that they want to just feel more confident in their tech. They want to feel more comfortable using that tech to learn, and they just want a seamless learning experience where that tech isn't getting in the way of their learning. It just fades to the background. So I would say that there really isn't like a big secret to bridging this gap. It's really just to ask the right questions and not take assumptions and listen to real people's needs.
Absolutely love that. And I'm curious, have you received any feedback from the education community on how the pen is being used? Because when you see it in the hands of kids and you see how they're using it and you see how the teachers react to it, that's when you know you've created something useful, isn't it? So have you had any feedback from that community yet?
Right. So some of the things that we have heard from educators who have used this is that, they commented on how well it's been working out for their math classes, right? Showing the workings out of a math problem is much easier for students to explain their learning as well as do their homework rather than trying to type it in. I mean, God forbid. The Logitech Pen also works really great for students who are learning handwriting or learning how to write. since it was inspired from that triangular grip, I think it does provide that natural feel that students would benefit from at this stage and work seamlessly with the Chromebook. So really benefits those young learners. And then also another thing that we've heard was that it helps make certain tasks more efficient. One task is editing a PDF or worksheet. It just cuts out a whole set of steps there. I mean, you would have to originally download a PDF or worksheet, print it out, make your edits, then scan it in and upload it to your computer. But it just really cuts out all those steps in between. So those are a few things that we've heard so far.
And something else that always fascinates me is you've got an entire team that will go through a quite lengthy development process to bring this pen to life, get it out there. And then you get it out in the wild and people are using it. And very often people find use cases that the brand has never even thought of. So I'm curious again, have you ever heard of any stories about how the pen is being used and thought, why didn't we think of that?
Well, I guess that's the case with a lot of devices and designs that are designed for very specific use cases.
Yeah.
But with the pen, we had expected a wide range of use because it can be used in such a number and plethora of ways. So everyone has different ways that they like to learn, retain information, explain and express their thoughts and learning. So the stylus just offers another way to be able to do that, giving just another option to students. And so we're just excited to see, in all sorts of ways kids learn and express their learning.
And obviously we've just talked about the pen today, and I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but are there any other examples of how you and your team are designing tech for and with students in education?
Well, one product I can share is that we've built a product called the Rugged Combo 3, and that's a keyboard case for iPads. Designed for school use case. So it has things like spill-proof keys. You can't, spill liquids in there. It also has pluck-proof keys that kids can't pluck the keys off, which is actually a known problem to happen in schools. Also requires no pairing. Just stick it on your iPad and just starts working, and really meets those ultra durable standards and needs of schools. But what I can say is that we are just getting started in Logitech for education. So, stick around. There's a lot more to come.
And I suspect we have more parents than kids listening today. And maybe some of them parents are thinking, hey, why are the kids getting all the fun here? So are you designing any tech like this for adults too?
Well, for the Logitech Pen, in the future, Logitech Pen can be purchased through non-educational resellers. So very appropriate for adult use as well. So, you can stay tuned from us for more information when that does become widely available.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. But before I let you go, I always like to end the interviews on a light-hearted note and get the guests to leave everyone listening on a personal note of inspiration. So I'm going to ask that if you can leave us with a book that has maybe inspired you that we can add to our Amazon wish list and our listeners can maybe check out. But is there a book that means anything to you and maybe a story behind that choice too?
Yeah, the book I want to leave here is called Reimagining Design by Kevin Bethune. And Kevin is an incredibly inspirational individual. He was a nuclear engineer turned designer, and his book is about the power of design and curiosity and how it can be used for problem solving and transformative innovation. He also goes into his experience as a Black professional navigating corporate America and how we can embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion for positive change in the workplace and to have that reflect in the work that we produce. It's called Reimagining Design by Kevin Bethune.
Awesome. I'll be checking that out. I'll get that added to the Amazon wish list for sure. And obviously, this is an audio podcast. We're talking about a very visual thing with the pen stylus for Chromebooks here. If anyone wanted to find out more information, maybe check out a video of it in action, etc. What would be the best starting point for everything on your site? Because it is a pretty big website, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the best place is through logitech.com/education. Logitech is logitech.com/education.
Well, as I said at the very beginning of the podcast, tech is not often built with kids in mind, and it should be. And my biggest takeaway from everything you've created here is it's a mainstream tech tool, but it was designed for and with students rather than just a one-size-fits-all for, hey, kids, this will be great. I love how you've worked with the kids and students to give them something that's genuinely useful. But more than anything, just thank you for sharing the story behind that and that whole design process. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil.
So a huge thank you to Grace Lee for joining me today. I think her passion for design and creating user-centric education products that delight students and teachers really shine through. And I'd love to get her back on in the future and talk about the bigger picture behind her work. But as always, I invite you all to share your insights and experiences with me today. Did we spark any ideas or topics for future conversations? Whatever it might be, even if you want to just ask me a quick question, email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Just look for @NeilC.Hughes. And if you'd like to work with me, my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But that's it for today's episode. So a big thank you as always for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.